and good evening. My name is Ananya, and welcome to another very exciting episode on the ISC Entertainment Network channel. Today, we bring to you an informative session talking about tips and tricks to get into the most talked about companies in the world, the big four accounting firms, namely Delloite, KPMG, PwC, as well as EY. A lot of aspirants kind of, whether in college, whether in school, they kind of grow up looking at these multinational brands and hoping to get a chance to prove their mettle while being a part of these companies. So today from our Calgary audience, we have some panelists joining us, sharing some tips and tricks, their experiences with you when interviewing for these firms, giving you some inputs about the requirements, whether it's educational, whether it's while the interview process, as well as many other aspects. Joining them, we have our audience panelists as well, who have worked in the big four firms before or are currently working. So they give you another dimension looking into the work-life scenario of a big four firm employee. All right, so let's get started with our panelists. So we have Shaurya Chauhan. Shaurya, why don't you quickly introduce yourself for our audience today?
Yeah, sure. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Shaurya Chauhan. I graduated from SAIT in 2020. I majored in accounting, and while I was studying, I was working as a data analyst for an energy company for 1.5 years. During that time, I also got a chance to interview with a lot of big four firms and mid-sized firms. So this is where I jump in and provide the insights on what you can do to get in your foot in the doors. Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Shaurya. Next, we move on to Gerard Poe. Gerard, would you like to please introduce yourself for our audience today?
Hello, I'm Gerard. I graduated at SAIT at the same time as Shaurya Chauhan and Donald Lazara. Majored in accounting as well. I've researched the big four firms and worked at RSM, which is a mid-size accounting firm. And currently, I'm enrolled in the master's program at the University of Saskatchewan to attain the MPAC, which is the Master's of Professional Accounting.
Thank you very much, Gerard. And we also have joining us Donald Lazara. Donald, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hey everyone, my name is Donalyn Lazara. I am a current CPA candidate, but I'm taking my CPA through the MPAC program with Gerard. I also graduated from SAIT with a bachelor's degree in accounting, and currently I'm working as a tax preparer, and I'm currently working as a tax preparer, and this coming fall, I'll be starting working in EY, Calgary.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for that, Donalyn. I'd also like to introduce our three audience panelists that we have today joining Jared, Donalyn, and Shaurya. So let's kickstart with Shraddha. Go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, so my name is Shraddha Agrawal. I graduated, I did my bachelor's in India with a major in accounting. I did my master's in finance from UK, University of Sunderland. And in Canada, I studied taxation and various accounting things. I used to work with RHS Canada, Wolseley Canada as accountant, and now I own NSI Accounting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Shraddha, and welcome. Next, we move on to Arjun Nair, another fellow Calgarian. Arjun, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me on the show. I'm an accountant with over 20 years of experience. I think I've done both sides of the accounting cycle, where I've worked in public practice as well as in industry. I currently work with the Coastal Group of companies in Calgary as a financial reporting accountant, wherein I take care of financial reporting in Canada and the US across various sectors. But prior to working in industry, I worked with mid-sized public practice firm in Calgary for 8 years. And prior to which I worked with Ernst & Young for 6 years in India. wherein I actually handle the accounting for clients of Ernst & Young in private company services across Middle East and North Africa. And I also completed my graduation in India way back in 1997. So it's over 20 years of experience in accounting.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Arjun. And last but not the least, we have Saranya joining us as well from Calgary. Saranya is a current Big Four employee. So Saranya, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Saranya. I actually work with PwC right now in their mergers and acquisitions group as a manager. So I kind of come from a non-accounting background. So I've done my undergrad is in economics from the National University of Singapore. And then I did a master's in finance from the UK at Warwick Business School. And I used to be an investment banker in Singapore for years. And then I moved to Calgary in 2015. And I've been with EY, Delloite, and I'm currently now with PwC. So I thought I could bring in that perspective.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to all our panelists for having this discussion. I'm sure there are a ton of questions out there, and it just brings a little bit more value when a real person is giving you some input as opposed to, Googling the entire internet to get some specific answers. So let's quickly jump into the educational requirements that at minimum any of these Big Four accounting firms will look for in a candidate. So Gerard, can you share those answers with our audience, please?
So the minimum is to even be considered in the CPA is a bachelor's degree. That doesn't necessarily have to major in accounting, but majoring in accounting actually helps a lot because you bypass the preparatory courses required in order to get into the CPA program. Once you get into the CPA program, it starts branching out into you need to do the modules as well as working hours. But other than that, the requirements are, if I'm not mistaken, 65%. You just need a 65% average on all your courses, and you can apply for the CPA. And then from there, there's the interview.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm going to just quickly have Saranya join in here. As we briefly discussed, the Big Four firms are no longer just about accounting. They have enlarged their portfolio to include tax and auditing and consulting and all of that. So from that perspective, Saranya, can you give us some insights into the educational requirements that they might be looking for now that they have this broad portfolio of segments that they offer?
So Ananya, basically all four of the Big Fours have your assurance, which is your audit practice, tax, consulting, and some companies have financial advisory where M&A falls under. So if you're not looking for audit, or if you don't have an accounting background, consulting or financial advisory is a good place to go. So as Gerard said, a minimum requirement will be a bachelor's degree. And so in some positions, some roles may require accounting, but not all of them do. So if you have engineering or finance or even music, you'll be quite surprised at how open the Big Four can be to your background.
That's interesting, right? Because the overall perception is that, okay, you got to follow this certain route if you want to become part of the pack, I guess. All right, moving on to the CPA route. So let's talk about masters. Let's talk about some specializations that you may want to do. So I'm going to have Donalyn chime in here, our third panelist here, discussing the Big Four elements. So Donna, give us some insights about that.
Sorry, with the master's program or the CPA?
Let's talk about both. So
Okay.
Let's do it in two segments.
So there are two routes for the CPA. It's usually the traditional route where you get all the modules and what George was saying earlier. So it's an online program through the CPA. You get 2 core modules, you get 2 electives, and you need to finish 2 capstones before you can even before you can apply for a CFE exam, and then you get your designation plus work hours. The other one that I'm taking is the master's program, where It's a master's program that includes the accounting modules that the CPA have. And as soon as you finish the program, you only need to do the CP and complete the working hours in order to get your designation.
Okay, that's very interesting. I'd like to maybe hear Shraddha shed some light on that as well, since, Shraddha, you come from several different backgrounds of education in different geographical countries as well. So like Donna said, she's taking a little bit of the non-traditional route that is typically not taken by a lot of people when they're targeting to get employed at the big four firms. So, now, can you shed some light about what you did to kind of, get your certifications in order here in Canada?
Well, as I moved from UK with a degree in masters, it was accepted. I was very surprised that it was accepted, but I still had to do my diploma courses, my other courses when it comes to the taxations and audits and all those things. So there were some CPA preparatory modules which I did as well. My plan was to complete my CPA, which I didn't because of other commitments. But yes, I mean, there are different routes, as she said, and I would also like to put a little light on what kinds of CPA. So if these big four firms, most of them are also affiliated with the industry in USA, and like especially when it comes to KPMG and all those things, they have people who have US CPA, CPA. And they not necessarily, you don't have to necessarily go with the Canadian one. That is what I've learned over the years. If you want to work with these firms, they are pretty open to these kind of things, and because they have their foot in all these big countries, it is widely accepted to do all these things. So people who do not want to go on the traditional route and who do not just want to focus on the big public firms in Canada can also opt for the other route, which is a little, I would say, a little less time consuming. It's very, it's the same kind of thing, but it's a little less time consuming, I believe.
That's very interesting to hear, because typically the perception is that you got to follow steps 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's obviously refreshing to hear that now that the multinationals kind of have their presence in several different places, they are open to certifications. They recognize these educational qualifications from several different countries, so that's good to hear. Shaurya, share a little bit more about your experience when it comes to the whole educational requirement route of things.
I think it depends upon the person to person on what route they want to take. So like in the traditional way, you work and you study at the same time, which is a bit more hectic. But at the same time, you're getting the practical side of it and the theory side of it combined together. It is very stressful, which is why MPAC came in, and MPAC is like, okay, you work for the months you work for, and during the summertime, you go to University of Saskatchewan or Edmonton and do your MPAC course for 4 months. So it is actually 8 months breaking down into 2 summers, and you study all the modules over there. When you come back to work, all you do is work. You don't have to study, and during the busy time, you don't have to take the time out and, instead of work, instead of spending or being up for 19 hours a day, you can work and come back home and go to sleep. So I think it depending on person to person, what they like. Do they like to work and study and they can handle that much stress? Go for it. If not, MPAC is, for me, I personally prefer MPAC because when I want to work, I work. When I come home, I can go to sleep. I don't have to think about anything else.
Thanks for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of our audience members will feel the same way, because it is a struggle trying to juggle your work and balance your studies at the same time, especially when the workplace is very demanding and has very, very high expectations of results. So for sure, that's definitely a good option to consider. Talking about the work experience, let's move on to that topic. I want to kind of direct this question to Arjun. What kind of work experience are we looking at? What different fields, auditing, tax, consulting? You've worked for 6 years in EY, you said, in India. So shed some light about that for our audience, Arjun.
Working with the Big Four is definitely a challenge. Some people find it easy, some people find it intimidating because you're going to be working with some of the biggest companies, biggest brands. So it does bring in a little bit of intimidation, but it's also an exciting process because you get to actually understand how a lot of these businesses work, right? So for somebody who's coming fresh out of college, you're probably going to be hit with so much of information which you've never had to do before, right? And as you progress, you actually you start to fine tune yourself with what you want. As far as I know of people with various backgrounds. Considering the fact that even if you're an IT professional with some kind of a security background, you actually can, with what I mean is information security. So you're an IT professional, you can actually work with the Big Four. Big Four also has an option wherein you actually they're developing software, they're developing platforms for use in the industry, for use across in audit, or be it in accounting, be it in tax. So you're exposed to a lot of different things that it's not necessarily that you're a commerce graduate going into the Big Four. You can be a graduate with different backgrounds, so you're open to a lot of new things as they come up. With the new kind of technology environment we live in right now, I believe the Big Four and the other mid-sized firms actually give you exposure to different kinds of technologies, different kind of uh, what do you say? I would say different kind. The new emerging technologies too are also part of what we learn.
Absolutely. Innovation is something that the Big Four really, pride upon, right? Like through years and years of research and employing the smartest minds in the world, they've definitely been able to develop even proprietary technologies to kind of handle their systems, and keeping, privacy is a big part of it, as well as protecting all the data. So definitely for you're definitely aspiring to work with the best of the best, so it can be sometimes an uphill challenge. So on that note, you mentioned mid-sized firms as well, where you're able to see the same kind of opportunities as much as you would see in a Big Four firm. But I'd like to ask Gerard this question, since he has looked into some mid-sized firms compared to the Big Four firms. Gerard, shed some light on that, if you know about the comparison that you saw, and what were some of the results that you were able to see.
Yeah, so in a mid-sized firm, we also have some communication with, because since accounting, I guess the accounting world is kind of small. So there's a lot of friends of friends who work in Big Four, and then we get to get from the grapevine, hear about the different experiences. And the biggest one I've heard, and also working in a mid-sized firm, is when you work on a file in a mid-size, you can oversee most of the file itself for the client. Whereas in a Big Four, you tend to focus down on specific aspects of a company. So for instance, revenue or accounts receivable or cost for that matter. Whereas in a mid-size, you do all those. So you get to see the big picture in a smaller company. So it depends on what kind of experience you're going to have or want, excuse me. In a Big Four, you definitely get a deeper understanding of a specific area, whereas in a mid-size, you get more of a bird's eye view with less detail. That's my best understanding of it.
That's interesting. So I guess that's where a lot of these specializations within the Big Four come in, where Saranya quickly mentioned it's no longer just about accounting. It's no longer just about auditing. You can literally go in several different paths. And from what I've heard or experienced, they do value development quite a bit. So, if you do come up with an innovative idea of doing something, they do kind of equip you with the tools and provide you with a platform to kind of explore it if they think it is beneficial in the long run. So in terms of the educational aspect of it, being a part of a company that has big pockets, your professional development can definitely see an upward rise, so to say. Okay, so that was all really interesting. I will come back to the work culture topic a little bit later in this segment, but let's quickly run through the most important question that probably a lot of the fresh graduates are most interested in. Let's talk about the interview process. So first off, Shaurya, I believe you have extensive experience with Delloite, one of the top players of the Big Four group there. So shed some light about what your experience was, what were some of the processes, some tips and tricks, and what people can kind of expect when they're going through this process.
Yeah, for sure. With Delloite, the first thing is networking. You need to make your presence out there. You can't just simply upload your application and believe that they will call you. No, that's not happening. Networking, you make your presence, they know who you are, what your personality is. And after that is the application process, which is a bit of a rigorous process. So with Delloite, their application like resume, cover letter, and official transcript, depending upon your graduation status, you combine them together, you upload it, and then all the other information that they ask for. Deloitte in particular is the only firm I have came across who actually ask how many hours you work outside of a school, and if those are working hours towards your job or your volunteering experience. So if you have a low GPA, they can actually track down why do you have a low GPA. So keep in mind, if you have working experience and you have volunteering experience, that's a good addition. Once you submit your application and the HR person knows who you are, you have a good chance of getting a pre-recorded interview, which is basically 5 sets of questions. It could be a behavior based, it could be simply asking about why are you joining Deloitte, and or it could be a combination of giving you a situation and asking you how would you behave in that situation. So it always changes, and so I can't give a definite answer on that matter, but it's usually 5 questions. You get 30 seconds to read and understand the question, or a minute or 2 minutes to answer the questions. Once you do that, so after finishing your recorded interview, they will look at your application and your recorded interview. Based on that, you move on to the next stage, which is 2-on-1 interview and a panel discussion. So depending on the day how it goes, you can either do 2-on-1 interview, which is a partner and a manager, and it's usually 30 minutes, mostly behavioral based questions combined with your experience or your resume, what kind of experience you have, and they will go over through that. The other part, which is a tricky one, is the panel discussion. So there's a group, like there's a panel sitting over there, could be partners or managers, and they will give you a case. You are teamed up with different students. It's mostly 5 or 4, and they will give you a case. You have 15 minutes to come up with a solution. And in that one, you have to be really careful, because not only they judge you as a team member, but they also judge you as what kind of personality you have and how strongly you come with your point of view, right? So altogether, 3 hours. Interview could also like go up to 45 minutes, and panel discussion can end up for 1 hour, and then you have a post-interview thing where you meet all managers, you discuss how your day went, and once everything goes, after a week or 2, you will get the offer letter, depending you nailed the thing or you nailed yourself back. I have forgotten to add one thing. Once you pass your pre-recorded interview, you are called for the pre-social, a day before your actual interview, which is where you get to meet your employers and who will be conducting interviews like for everyone. So that's the way where you want to make your presence as well, and don't bomb them with too many questions. Just be casual, because as much they want you, you want them. So that's my thing with Deloitte and I got interviewed with them 2 years, so they are changing. In the coming few years, they might add some gaming element, just like PwC, to judge your cognitive abilities. Thanks.
Ananya, I think you're on mute.
I apologize. That's an interesting experience where, the company really wants to kind of get to know your full personality instead of just making the decisions purely based on what you've written on your resume. So they not only are they interested in your, skills per se as listed on paper, but how you get along in the team, how collaborative you are, how assertive you are. That's really interesting to hear. Jared, I believe you have had some experience with the other two firms, so KPMG and perhaps PwC as well. Can you shed some light about their processes? Are they any different than what Shaurya just shared, or are there certain elements that stand out more?
Okay, so just to clarify for anyone who is sort of new to this, PwC and Deloitte are pretty much neck and neck in terms of being the #1 Big Four. So some of their processes are very similar, and I'm just going to highlight what is different. PwC, from my experience about 2 years ago, trying to apply to them, values an individual's talents and skills more than Deloitte. Whereas I feel that Deloitte values teamwork and drive. PwC is strictly looking for how good are you. And don't like, I'm not trying to scare anyone when I say that, but PwC, their application process is a resume, and right off the gate, you're getting a cognitive exam, which usually lasts anywhere between 20 minutes to an hour. I'm not sure anymore how long it is, but they do test how you think. And that's not necessarily about accounting. It's actually how you think. So be aware of that. And then from there, once you pass the precognitive exam, you do a pre-recorded video interview. So same as Deloitte, followed by the main interview where you get interviewed by either a manager, a partner, someone way more senior than just who you're going to be reporting to. And then finally, if you get past that, you do a post-social gathering where they want to see how you act in, I guess, a more normal setting instead of just question upon question. Yes, so PwC is very competitive, I would say. I don't know so much what Saranya's experience is, but that's from my research. It could obviously have changed in those 2 years. Do you want to break right now for PwC, or should I go straight into KPMG?
Yeah, just go ahead with KPMG. We'll circle back to Saranya on her experience about working for PwC right now.
Okay, so KPMG is, it's kind of great that I get to also talk about this because I feel that they're the complete opposite of PwC, where they still value skill and education, of course, but they are ranked as the smallest of the Big Four. So I like KPMG personally because I worked in a mid-sized firm, and they're the biggest, smallest Big Four. So if you have a feeling that when you're researching Deloitte and PwC, I would say KPMG has a more traditional non-Big Four interview process where they just do so they do the application, the pre-interview, the main interview, and finally, so less steps, more steps than a mid-sized firm, but less steps than PwC or Deloitte. Yeah.
Thank you very much there, Jared. That's really good information, especially, the interview process is the one that kind of gives everybody the, coldest feet, so to say. So it's really good to understand the overall process, what they go through. So, you know what, before moving on to Sharni, I want to quickly jump on to Donalyn here. She is about to begin working for EY. So Donalyn, how was your interviewing experience there? If you can give us a short snippet.
Yeah, sure. So mine is different because of COVID. So like naturally they would do a video interview first, but instead unlike EY or unlike Deloitte or PwC where it's 5 or 7 questions, it's only one question. They would email it to you and then you answer it after a day. And then after that, you're gonna get 2 sets of interviews from what I've heard, because I've only done one because of COVID. And then after that, you're gonna get invited to a partners dinner, so they can meet you and know you in a casual environment. And then that's after that, then you either get an offer, or they send offers. But right now, because of COVID, they've only did one interview. In addition,
and no partner's dinner for you. You just lost out on a fancy meal.
Yeah, I'm so sad. Like they kept repeating that, and I'm like, really?
You bet.
Well, they did send me a package afterwards, but an offer.
Okay, that's good. All
Yeah,
right, well, that's good. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all I want to say.
Okay, so fairly streamlined compared to, you know, as Jared mentioned, Deloitte or PwC, so to say. I'm going to just quickly take this to Saranya now. So your interview process, how long have you been with PwC now, Saranya?
2 years.
2
years.
Okay. So how would you kind of agree with some of the statements that have been made about the whole interview process and the stringentness of it all, or the complicated situation?
I think it's very different when you do it as a fresh grad, because when you're coming through that, you're coming through a very regimented, structured program. And so, you know, what the rest of the team has said, it's just probably true. I personally don't have experience in it since I came in as an experienced hire. But if you are looking at coming in as an experienced hire, then the standard usually is to put in your resume, you'll get an HR interview. Most likely you will have a case study to do. Can't seem to escape that, especially if you're in consulting. And that is very specific to the team that you're joining. And then the final step would be an interview with a partner and somebody else that's senior on the team. And then you have an offer. So it's pretty similar, just that we don't have like an assessment center or panel discussions.
Right.
So mine was just basically a case study, HR interview, and a partner interview.
How long is the case?
Mine was an hour because I was trying to go in for a manager. So they needed to make sure that I could come in at that level.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. And I think overall we can agree that, you know, these big four companies are definitely trying, you know, in the most cliched sense, when they say they're looking for the right fit, they're not only just hiring for the skills, but they're actually looking to get the right person who will fit with their team. So like you mentioned, Gerard, Deloitte wants people with a lot of drive and a lot of, you know, specific skill sets, whereas, you know, PwC might want somebody a little bit more on the collaborative side of things. So that's interesting to note. I'm going to quickly jump to Shraddha here. Now that you have your own firm, what is, you know, from an audience, having maybe experienced the whole hustle bustle of the big four, and now that you're kind of starting your own thing, you know, what are your thoughts? What are, like, do you miss that life? You're like, okay, maybe I've taken some teachings from that life and applying to my own business. What has been the experience so far? Or how would you compare the two, rather?
I would say I've learned a lot from working in the companies. I've not worked with the big fours, but I have worked with a couple of mid-sized companies wherein I've handled the whole accounting and everything. As discussed before, I can say that, you know, yes, I got a bird's eye view. I got to do everything, and I got to learn the whole cycle, which has helped me a lot. Little things like, you know, you with big companies, they are stuck with one software. They have their own custom softwares. With the small companies, you know, you get to learn different things, different ways. So all those things have really helped. Yes, I miss that life, but, you know, sometimes you got to move on and you got to do your own stuff. So you know, when it comes to working in these companies, you get to do everything, starting from filing to AP to AR to getting into touch with clients, to doing your journal entries, to closing the books, doing the month ends. So all those things prepare you for what's going to come in future when you're going to grow. So that's not very overwhelming when it's all thrown at you, you know, because sometimes for fresh graduates, when they enter the big companies, it's really hard for them to adjust into that environment of, you know, because with accounting, there's a lot of paperwork. There's, you know, even with the softwares, there's a lot of things you have to take care of. There are a lot of protocols you need to follow. So in my experience, starting from a mid-sized company and then going to a big company is a very good thing to do, because you get to learn a lot. And, you know, when the room for mistake is, you know, it's okay to make mistakes in the mid-sized companies. They can be fixed. With the big companies, it's a big of a deal. So that's
true, isn't it? That's true, isn't it? Because, I've having gone through, some initial, initiation type talks with in the marketing department of Deloitte. This was a few years ago. And, just in talking with them, something that and then I have a lot of friends who do work in the big four companies, and some have now recently quit. And even though this is, not part of the discussion, but I think it's a really important element to understand work culture, especially with more and more young people kind of joining the workforce. It's no longer about, it's not traditional anymore, right? Where yeah, sure, I'll work 12, 14 hours now. They want only 8 hours of work. They want a work-life balance. They're a little bit more lax about, okay, I don't have to live just to work, which I think is fantastic, because it's a different kind of work ethic, I would think. Like, I think I'm a little bit still of a traditional mindset, where it's like, I can't leave till this is done. And sometimes I feel that it really affects my work-life balance, so to say, and I have to kind of take a step back. So I want to kind of throw this question to, Gerard and Shaurya and Donnellan, what have you found out about the work-life balance type culture? Sure, you have social and mixers and whatever, but I've personally seen friends work 18-hour days because, they did their full training of 8 hours, and then they also had to work. And I'll ask this to Saranya as well. Like, it could be different for accounting, it could be different for consulting. So kind of opening the floor. So how about we start with, Donna. She's starting. Donna, tell me something, what you've heard or what you've experienced with the interview process.
So you just can't escape the long hours during busy season. That's just a given. You're just not gonna see anyone. That's what I've heard. It's just gonna be horrible. But I guess that's just auditing. But well, during the networking events, what kind of dragged me to EY is because when I talk to them, they're always kind of happy. Like, I kind of resonated with them through networking events.
You want to be happy at your workplace.
Yeah. Well, probably the people that I talk to doesn't do a lot of accounting during the networking season, so they're still happy.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the culture. It's like what the firms can offer that you kind of really need to look at too.
Yeah.
If it's with what you want to do in life or what you want to go to work for.
Right. Interesting. What about you, Jared?
Yeah,
Gerard,
so,
sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So long hours for the first few years. From what my seniors have told me, the first year is going to be the worst. That I feel like that statement's true. I've talked to partners, I've talked to managers, I've talked to my year-old senior associates. They all said that the first year is the worst one. So if you can tough out the first year, you should be fine. And then the whole work-life balance, it comes with, I believe, how fast you can get it. So if you're the type of person who I think can keep up with the demands of the firm, you will pull longer hours. But at the end of the day, if you put in the work, you will get it. Some people are just faster than others, and some people can attain that work-life balance faster than others. But hey, we're all in this together, and you just gotta do it based on who you are. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Very interesting. And Shaurya, before moving on to Arjun and Saranya, Shaurya, what have you found, or in your conversations or in your interview process, is the work culture really that dense?
Realistically speaking, it is a long hours. Like, Deloitte could go up to 17 hours a day or 16 hours a day, right? It's not only for 1 or 2 days. It could end up for 4 months straight. You're doing 90 hours a week, we could be doing 80 hours a week, right? But me, I'm a traditional guy. I like to work 9 to 5. And the reason I'm saying that, because the company I was working before, as a customer data analyst, I was working 14 hours a day. I will sit on my laptop at 8 a.m. and won't get up till 9 p.m. And I was actually living at work. COVID made the whole thing more work. And now I'm sitting at home. I just keep working. There was no getting out from me. And then when I
Yeah.
realized that maybe I'm not the guy who would like to go into Big Four or go into that, which is why I'm gunning for the government jobs. And I like taxation. So CRA is something I've been always passionate about, and that's what I'm aiming for. But anyone who can survive or who likes to, work and get into that work mode, Big Four is something that will shape you as someone, as a future leader. When you have seen all the battles, a small battle won't scare you off. So you have to be
Right.
mentally ready of what you're up to, and don't be too optimistic. Be realistic. Like don't just get, oh, I'll get through it. No, mentally prepare yourself. I know some people who got into Big Four and then they left it right in the middle of their CPAs and their job, and they
Yeah.
mentally they are exhausted, right? And now they're
Yeah.
working for Suncor and they're pretty happy.
Yeah.
So that's my
I think
take.
that's why. Yeah, thank you for sharing that because I think it's really important to bring all the facts to the table because isn't it, a very glamorous dream of every hardworking child, they grow up dreaming to be part of this multinational brand, but there is a significant amount of work involved in order to kind of traverse that trajectory. And this is my personal opinion, sometimes growth can be slow because you're competing with so many people, and as well as the your impact that you may have, to each their own. And there are superstars, and I'm sure Saranya is one of them. She's been picked from every big firm, and this is kind of like her territory. So she's definitely a top performer, and everybody kind of wants a piece of that pie. And then she might have very different story of the upward trajectory. So I want to kind of shoot that off to her, Saranya, before we get another input from Arjun there.
Sure. I think in terms of what Sharia or Donna or Gerard said, I think if you're in audit, yes, you are going to have your busy period. But you guys remember there is a rest of the year where it's not as busy. And again, I work in mergers and acquisitions. So sometimes I get a call at 8 a.m. in the morning that this transaction's happening and I'm on it that day. And I could be working 18 hours, but it's not going to be every single day. And a lot of it really depends on what team you're with, what the culture within your team is like, what kind of a boss do you have, what kind of a manager is on your project. So I've been really lucky that I used to work 80 hours in investment banking. So to me, I actually have work-life balance in Calgary, but that's because I'm comparing it to something worse. So I think you'll always have some really long days, but you also have some days where the firm is like, you know what, if you're done at 3 o'clock, go home, take some time off. And that flexibility, honestly, is like the best thing you can get with these firms.
Yeah, and being such big firms, they have those bigger pockets in order to kind of really give back to their employees, giving them, or they can afford that extra 2 hours that you're not at work, and they can they kind of value that. Okay, you know what, enough for the day, you can go home, no big deal, we're not going to fall apart. So obviously there's definitely pros and cons to that. So Arjun, you were with EY in India, and you kind of came here. Have you had conversations with people working on the Canadian side of things, and is there a big culture difference, or is it the same, slog it off, in whatever part of the world you are because you're part of the Big Four? Like, how does that work?
Just to share my perspective, with Ernst & Young, I mean, I'll say yes, 10 years ago, I was much younger. I was single. So, and I lived all alone. So I think, and I was a workaholic. So 18 hours a day was kind of normal, right? And I actually led a team wherein we were actually doing, where we were actually incorporating technology in accounting services. So being a subject matter expert, you're talking to so many different people across the globe, not just in India, be it in the Middle East, be it in North Africa, be it in Europe. You're actually talking to so many people. So you're working different times of the day, right? So kind of it prepare. So, and it used to be busy. You actually have the office I worked in actually had over 500 people in it. And I did get exhausted at one point of time, and I actually said, "Okay, I'm done. I'm burning out. I can't handle this." And that's when I said, "Okay, I got this chance to come to Canada. Yes, I come work. I start work in a mid-sized firm. Forget 500. I only see 6 people. 6 people. And I'm like, what do I do? I'm used to seeing so many people every day. But then the whole crux is, especially whether you work in a big four or mid-sized firm, one of the cruxes, I think even Shaurya mentioned it, you got to be realistic, you got to change, you got to learn every day. Every single day is a new day. The 20 years of experience actually prepared me for what we actually went through during the last 10, 11 months in COVID. I know we used to, considering that we have an operation in North America, I know we used to deal with accountants in PwC, deal with our advisors in KPMG. Working with all of them, because I had the background, the experience, I could understand what their mindset was. I could understand, as Gerard just pointed out, that yeah, KPMG works on a traditional basis, PwC works very different. Surprisingly, I work with and you work with people across different nationalities. So working with the Big Four prepares you for that very open.
Thank you so much, Arjun, for that viewpoint. I think, we're in this overall discussion, we were able to establish some pros and cons for all the aspiring new grads out there who want to get that brand stamp on their resumes. So good luck. I hope this session has been informative. Big thank you to all our panelists. Thank you so much for your inputs. I think these new grads who are, going to be stepping into their new adult life and working away their youth are going to get some good inputs to make informed choices. Donna, once again, congratulations. I hope your journey into EY is fantastic, as well as Gerard and Shaurya. Good luck for all your future endeavors. Keep us posted, post about it in our group. We'd love to hear how things are progressing. And to our audience members, do watch out, do see the entirety of this video. I think you'll get some good inputs. Even if we are seasoned professionals, I think we can take a little bit back about how workaholic we want to stay and how much of a work-life balance we need. So thank you, all of you, once again. Really appreciate the time, and we'll see you in another very exciting segment on the ISC Entertainment Network.